Hello everyone, JuliaSheehan here, independent StampinUP demonstrator from Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. Today I'd like to just do this little card, and the reason that I'm doing it is I was asked by someone if I would do some embossing. So I decided to make this card predominantly about embossing, and I'm using some stamp sets that I think really lend itself to embossing. One of them is the Crackle paint. Oh dear, I've had something fall down here. Hang on. Is Crackle paint, and I think this looks beautiful embossed. And then I'm using the Butterfly Wishes stamp set, and these are beautiful stamps and sentiments. And I'm using the Butterfly Duet punch here that goes with this stamp set. Now, I'll have to move these things, they're just being annoying now. They haven't fallen down all day, but of course they start to now. Okay, so there's not much involved with this card. I have picked out the colours that I've used in the wings. So on this one I've got Pineapple Punch, and you can see that there is Pineapple Punch in the wings. This one was Lovely Lipstick, and I picked out the lovely lipstick for that one. And this one I'm doing Bermuda Bay, which is 8 1/4 inches by 5 7/8 of an inch, and then folded in half and burnished. I have a piece of Very Vanilla, 5 6/8 of an inch by 4 inches, and then I have a small piece of Bermuda Bay, 1 5/8 of an inch by 7/8 of an inch, and a smaller piece of Very Vanilla, 1 1/2 inches by 6/8 of an inch. And that's pretty much it, just some offcuts of the Very Vanilla to do the butterflies, and that's about it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is the background. Now I've put my stamp onto the big block, but I'm not going to stamp down with it. I'm actually going to lay it down and bring the cardstock to the stamps. So using the VersaMark ink, well, first thing I must do when you're doing any embossing, use your embossing buddy, and it just gets any like grease off fingerprints or anything like that off your cardstock, so that you don't have little bits of your embossing powder sticking to things that you don't want it to. Now I'm just going to pop that there, and I'm going to get my VersaMark ink, and I'm just going to put it all over the stamp this way. Just making sure that you get a good coverage. Do your best to anyway. If there's any little gap, you can always try and place a butterfly there or something just to cover it up. And that usually works. Okay, so now I'm going to get my cardstock and lining it up as best I can. I'm just going to lay that on there, and then I'm just going to get a piece of paper, just a piece of scrap paper, put that over the top, and then just rub on that just to get the impression nicely onto the cardstock. Okay, so that should be good. Okay, so we're just going to peel that off, and that looks like it's come up well. I'll just put that aside for the moment, and we'll get our embossing powder, and again just a piece of paper to put it on so that you can get your leftover embossing powder back into your container. And I'm just going to sprinkle this all over it. Anybody who's watched a lot of my videos will know that I love doing embossing, so the request was one that I really enjoyed. Now I've covered that really well. Tip it all off, and there we go. That's ready. Okay, so I'm just going to gather this up and pour it straight back into my container to be used again. Right, I'm going to do this one now. There'll just be a bit of noise. I'm going to actually heat this from underneath. I've been having just a little bit of trouble with my embossing powder of late. I think it's just getting a little bit old. So I'm going to do it from underneath because it seems to work better. I'll just let that heat up for a second. To turn in the corners. Just take my glasses off so I can see what I'm actually doing. And when you're embossing, you don't have to go like this all the time. Sometimes you see people do that. You don't need to. Just concentrate it on an area, not for too long. You don't want to burn your paper. But once it gets going, it goes pretty quickly. Now I'm just going to turn that around just so I don't get burned myself. Let me just get the rest of it. I better move that over. Keep getting out of shot. Just make sure you look for any areas you might have forgotten to do. A little bit in the middle there. And you can see in the light, that's pretty well covered, I think. I think we've got it all. There we go. Okay, that bit's done. And I might add that to my card now. So just some glue on the back. And the glue's getting a little bit low now. I have to give it a shake down. Okay, so some glue on there. Just to make it nice and secure and keep its shape. And there we are. And that's on ready to go. I always manage to get a bit of embossing powder left lying around anyway, so it's just one of those things. Alright, next step. We're going to do our butterflies. So again, just a scrap piece of Very Vanilla is fine. And I'm using this butterfly from that set, and I'll use my embossing buddy on here again. And the VersaMark ink, which I put somewhere. Always amazes me how quickly things disappear. Okay, so make sure that you ink it up, and you can see that it's nicely wet there. Okay, alright, I'm going to do one here. Just press down for a second till you get a nice transfer. And one right beside it. Now I'm just going to put my embossing powder onto there whilst this end's done, because I don't want it to dry off too much. There we are. And I'll do one at the other end as well. And you're probably wondering why I put it at the other end. Well, when you put it in the punch, you don't want it to get cut if you've put it just a little bit close. I must have missed a little spot there, so you can see that there's just a little bit of the embossing powder clinging, but tiny little paintbrush works really well. So just keep that in mind. And then I'm going to heat these up. This should be fairly warm still, so these should go quickly. There we go. It's done. I hope you can see that changing, because it looks amazing when it does. I think the person that was asking me to do this was just a little bit worried about using the embossing powder, but you know, like as most of you know, it's really easy to use, and not to be scared of it at all. Now all I'm going to do is just line those up so that they'll punch out neatly. I always squeeze down on my punch just a little bit, not enough to cut, but just enough to hold it there so I can see if I'm fairly well lined up. Because sometimes, you know, just things move a little bit just at the last second, and you don't want that to happen. See, I'm not happy with that, so there we are. There's another one. And my last one. The cardstock's just bent a little bit there, so just got to get it in. There we are. It's in. And whoops. See, that's what I mean about it moving. Just tight enough that you've got a good grip on it. Okay, now I'm going to do the little ones as well, just to get them done and out of the way. Might do them along the edge. So I'm going to use this little one and just do 1, 2, 3. And that should be alright because I use the embossing buddy over all of it, so we shouldn't have too much trouble with that. Then just put our embossing powder back on again. Give it a tap off. You can always flick it from the underside too if you want to. And then I'll just do these ones, and then we'll be done with the heat gun. There we go. And the last one. There we are. And then we can turn that off for a while. Okay, now I'm just going to cut these out. Again, just slide it in. Get it where you want it and just pop it out. 1. Oh, I have a bit of a sore leg. I just bumped it. Had a fall in the backyard this afternoon, and it really hurt. I was down on the ground for a while, but at least there's no broken bones, so that's really good. Now all I'm going to do is I'm using some Stampin' Blends, and I'm using the dark pineapple punch, some pumpkin pie, a light Bermuda Bay, and the lovely lipstick, a dark one. So now it's just a matter of just deciding where you want to do your colour. I'm going to do it in the top part of the wing for this one. And just fill in that space that's left where the embossing powder isn't. And then I'll do, in the next one, I'll do it in a different space. I mean, you can do them all the same if you want to. I just like to mix them up a little bit. That's that one. And then this one I might do down the bottom. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the other colours. Just mixing it around. Try not to get it onto the embossing, the embossed area. You can wipe it off, but it just does sometimes mark it a bit, so just be a little bit careful of that. It's like all colouring, stay within the lines as best you can. Okay, and last one. So I've gone over a little bit there, but it's not really that noticeable. Okay, change colours. I'll just do this quickly because I know you really don't want to watch me colouring in all afternoon. But the idea is to just really show how easy it is to do embossing. And it is, and it's so much fun. So don't be afraid of it. And then I'm just going to finish off the last little bits with some of the pumpkin pie. They're just a few little bits down the sides. Same here. I didn't want to do a very long video today. I've been spending most of my time on my father's birthday card. He turns 90 on Tuesday, and so that has taken up so much of my time when I'm not at work, because I wanted that to be really special for him, and I had to get it in the post. So there we are. Okay, so they're right. Now, well, I did forget one thing. I have to do the sentiment. So we will have just a little bit more noise. Just again, I'm going to emboss that. I could actually do it in the colour of the card. That would bring out the colour a little bit from the background, but I find anything that's a yellow or anything like that is not, it doesn't come out as well as it could, so I tend to stick with the embossing for this sort of thing. Okay, there we go. Bit of embossing powder on that one. Tap it off and give it another go over, and then I'll have to watch my fingers on this one because this is going to be quite hot because it's very close. There we go. And then turn it round. You see me pull it away a little bit, it is very hot. There we are, we got it done. Good. So with your butterflies, you can either just bend them by hand like that. I tend to just put my bone folder there and there so that I've got a flat surface along the body to attach my glue to, and just get their wings up. If you have to post it, of course the wings will sit down flat, but if you're giving it to someone, you can always give it to them with the butterflies already in position. Now I'm going to add my sentiment to my little piece of Bermuda Bay, because that's the colour I'm featuring today. So glue that on there. Put that on there, and then we can set out our card. Now I'm going to put this up on dimensionals. Another thing, if you're using dimensionals, always have a look at your, like, don't throw away these edge ones. They all come in handy. I use them just as much as anything else because they're still dimensional, they're just not the normal shape, that's all. So they still do the job you want them to do. So I'm going to put that on in 3 spots. And I'll just sit that there for the moment just to see where I want to actually finish it off. And I'll put a butterfly up here, I think. To me, this looks like a butterfly on a tree. You know, I don't know if you get them anywhere else in the world, but we have these trees in Australia. I think they are natives. They could be from the Grevillea family, I'm not sure, but they have a bark very similar to this on a raised section of their bark, and it's really nice looking bark. And so this is what this always reminds me of. And often you'll see a moth or a butterfly just slightly camouflaged on those plants. So yeah, that's how I see it. So if you've got that kind of tree anywhere, you'll understand what I mean. Okay, so I think that's okay there. So we'll put the glue on this one, and we're just going to put it down that little strip. It's enough to hold it there. Oop, a little bit carried away there. Okay, and I'm just going to sit that on there. When you do put them on, just make sure that if the wings were down flat, they wouldn't be sticking over the edge of your card in case you want to pop it in an envelope. And that one can go there. And you can always just use your bone folder to press down on that. And I'll take my little bits off the back of these dimensionals, and I can sit that on. I always like to sort of lay out the card before I just start sticking things on there, just so that I feel happy with how it sits. And then this one, and I'll pop that about there. Again, the side of the bone folder is perfect for that. And our little ones. Just twist that so I can hold that there. And a little bit on this one. Maybe I should have him flying downward. Okay, I just noticed I missed a little bit of embossing up there, so I'll have to fix that later. I can fix that. Okay, all I'll do is I'll just go over, you can see a slight line there, and I'll go over that with the VersaMark ink and then just put a little bit of embossing powder on, so that'll be able to be fixed. They always say in Stampin' Up, there's nothing that can't be fixed or changed or something put over something to hide something. It still all works out. Okay, so there it is in Bermuda Bay, and on the inside I didn't cut a piece for that today, but I'll be putting a piece of Very Vanilla in there, and I will just stamp the butterfly on the inside and I will emboss it. So I'll stamp it in the VersaMark and then put some embossing on it, and that's all. And then whatever sentiment, and as you know, I never put a sentiment inside a card till I know who it's for, unless I'm asked for it for a specific reason, because certain sentiments just don't suit certain people. So I always like to leave that until I know who I'm giving the card to. Anyway, there it is in Bermuda Bay. Lovely lipstick and pineapple punch. I hope you've enjoyed that video, and if you're thinking about having a go with embossing powder now, please do. It is really easy and the result is beautiful. So thank you for watching, everyone. Please subscribe to my channel and turn on your notifications, and I do a video every week. So I'll be back again next week, and have a wonderful week. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.